chosen ones. Do you ever feel like time bends when you step into certain places or read ancient words? That's not imagination. It's a memory surfacing. A memory encoded deep within your being, encrypted by the architects of divine intelligence. Long ago, before temples were raised and scrolls were written, a message was placed beyond the reach of the ordinary. It was not meant for the multitudes. It was meant for you. Thoth, the Atlantean scribe, master of sacred geometry, and guardian of the emerald tablets, spoke of a final messenger, one who would not just carry truth, but become it, not through bloodline or hierarchy, but through remembrance, a being who would awaken from the dream of separation and remember the assignment buried beneath layers of programming and pain. His prophecies weren't just etched into stone or sung through glyphs. They were written into soul patterns, waiting to be unlocked by a specific vibration. Your vibration. This was never about information. It was about activation. Every text, every myth, every whisper of divinity in this fallen realm has been pointing to something, or someone. But only one with the original frequency could hear it clearly. The final messenger isn't coming. The final messenger has already arrived, and you've been carrying the code the entire time. That's why this world has tried to break you in 1,000 unseen ways. Because you were designed to transmit something that would unbind the illusion. You were never supposed to fit in. You were meant to dismantle. Your wounds weren't accidents. They were doors. And Thoth knew this. He foresaw that only a being forged in fire, yet still tuned to divine resonance, could speak truth without being consumed by it. But there's more, much more. Clues have been left across dimensions, buried in ancient texts, encrypted through symbols, scattered across lifetimes. And as you awaken, so do they. They say light travels faster than anything, but few realize it also carries memory. Within certain frequencies, those beyond the human spectrum, exist messages encoded not with ink, but with intention. Thoth, the architect of mystery and keeper of the emerald tablets, understood this. He didn't just write his final prophecy in stone, he sealed it in light. And only one with a matching resonance could ever unlock it. That resonance, unknowingly hidden within your spirit, has begun to stir. It's why your dreams have changed, why symbols you once ignored now whisper to you, why certain names, sounds, or phrases ignite something ancient within your chest. It's not coincidence. It's memory waking up. Thoth knew language would be distorted. That time would fracture. Civilizations would fall, and truth would be entombed beneath centuries of lies. So he entrusted the final message to the one place distortion could never reach: pure light. Not the kind seen by ordinary eyes, but the living light of divine consciousness. Light that listens. Light that remembers. Light that waits. His prophecy was not a prediction. It was a frequency, a signal cast into the fabric of creation, searching not for followers, but for one who had returned. That return wouldn't come through temples or rituals. It would begin in silence, in solitude, in a feeling of not belonging. And then, through that internal wilderness, a soft current would pull you toward what others call madness, but you now recognize as remembering, because everything around you, The system, the structure, the distractions was crafted to make you forget. But you didn't forget. Not fully. That whisper, calling you back to ancient truths, has only grown louder. The light codes are everywhere now, hidden in sounds, embedded in dreams, etched into nature itself. You're not reading this by accident. You're the key the prophecy foresaw. The final messenger was never a myth. It was a design. And the moment your eyes opened to the truth, the codes began to respond. But Thoth warned of a shadow that would follow the light, one that would do anything to stop the activation of this memory. He described it without naming it, and he left a final line no one has been able to interpret until now, because the one it was written for has finally arrived, and that line still pulses with unfinished energy, waiting for the one who dares to read it aloud. Beneath the temple of hidden flame, sealed in a chamber untouched by time, there was said to be a scroll that could not be read with eyes alone. Thoth named it the Scroll of Becoming, not because it taught transformation, but because it recognized it. This was no ordinary text. It responded to frequency, not language, to presence, not intellect. And in all the ages it remained dormant, waiting for one soul whose very essence echoed the forgotten rhythm of divine origin. That scroll, silent for millennia, begins to hum when you enter its memory. There is a reason you feel out of place in this world. It's because your origin doesn't begin in the stories men have written, but in the breath of the Eternal One. While the masses inherited tradition, you inherited memory, not through bloodline, but through fire. Thoth foresaw this. He saw the illusion of separation growing stronger, and knew the only cure would come from one who was never truly bound by it. The scroll was left behind as a mirror, reflecting what most feared to see, the divine blueprint of the awakened soul. It cannot be decoded with logic, only with remembrance. The secret of origin is this: you were never born the way you were told. You descended with purpose, cloaked in amnesia, surrounded by distractions crafted to dismantle your awareness. But something inside you endured. A flicker, a signal, a name you couldn't explain but never forgot. And when Yeshua said, "Before Abraham was, I am," it wasn't just a statement of divinity. It was a key meant for those like you, for the ones who would one day wake up with a burning in their chest and no language for why. You've likely felt it, that unshakable knowing that you're here for more, that some part of you is ancient, unbroken, unburned. You've walked through fire and carried truths you didn't understand until now, because this scroll was not meant to teach. It was meant to awaken. And now that you've come this far, its light begins to reveal the next layer. There is a mirror hidden beyond sight, not one made of glass or silver, but of frequency. Thoth called it the celestial mirror, and it was said to reflect not appearances but origins. Most who pass by it see only darkness, for it does not respond to ego or curiosity. It opens only to one whose inner light resonates with the signature it was tuned to. That signature was not born of time, but encoded into a singular being, a being who would awaken when the world reached its final distortion. The mirror has remained closed for ages, waiting, and now it senses your arrival. This mirror does not show you what you want to see. It reveals what you've forgotten. It peels back the layers of illusion, identity, title, trauma, and shows you the unfiltered memory of who you were before form. That memory can shatter a mind unprepared, which is why it remained sealed for so long. But your path, marked with pain and paradox, has made you ready. You have been undone by the world so that nothing false can follow you through this threshold. Those who control the illusion feared the mirror because they could not manipulate what it revealed. They tried to bury it beneath rituals, doctrines, and distractions. But truth cannot be killed. It can only be hidden. And when Yeshua said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he was pointing directly to this mirror, the one not built by hands, but placed within the soul of the awakened. A mirror not meant for the many, but for the one. Now, as your inner compass draws you closer, the mirror stirs. You feel it in your bones, in your sudden clarity, in the moments where time feels like it bends. This is no coincidence. You've begun to vibrate at the frequency of memory, and the mirror is responding. But before it fully opens, it must test you, not with trials, but with truth. The next reflection it offers is not of who you are, but of what watches through your eyes. It's a being older than the stars, cloaked in your very form. And once it shows you that, there is no returning to the world you knew, because what comes next is not another vision. It's a voice calling you by your real name. Long before this lifetime, long before the body you now inhabit took form, your soul passed through 9 distinct thresholds, what Thoth referred to as echoes. Each echo was a realm, a vibration, a crucible, and through each, a layer of illusion was stripped away while a seed of memory was planted. These echoes are not remembered through dates or lifetimes, but through feelings that seem to pulse from nowhere. They visit you in silence, in the spaces between thoughts, in moments that stop time. Each echo shaped something sacred. The first broke your innocence, but gave you discernment. The second collapsed your false power, so you could recognize the real. The third taught you the language of pain, so you could decipher others' wounds. The fourth gave you isolation, so you'd hear the voice that speaks without sound. The fifth shattered your beliefs, so only truth could remain. The sixth awakened a hunger for something more, a hunger no earthly thing could satisfy. The seventh tested your will, not to see if you would win, but to see if you would remember. The eighth wrapped you in a darkness so deep you could only navigate it by light born within. And the ninth echo, was silence itself. It is the one that still speaks now. These echoes formed the blueprint of your soul's voice. They refined your frequency to something the world cannot define, because it does not belong to the world. It belongs to something higher, older, more exact. And when Yeshua said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them," it was not just poetic, it was prophetic. Because you do hear it, don't you? Not with your ears, but deep inside. A voice with no language, but endless meaning. Now, the echoes are reactivating, not as memories, but as instructions. Each one is waking up inside you, aligning like stars preparing for a rare convergence. And when they align fully, something long dormant within you will switch on. A beacon, not for help, but for command. Because you weren't just called to remember, you were built to respond. There was one name Thoth never spoke aloud, a name inscribed only once, hidden beneath the glyphs of the emerald tablets, and buried within a sequence of symbols that defy translation. This name was not forbidden, it was protected, because to speak it prematurely would activate a frequency too potent for a world still deep in illusion. It wasn't the name of a place or a god. It was the name of a soul, and that soul was never meant to blend in, but to arrive at the end of the cycle bearing a memory strong enough to shift the entire field. That name is yours, but you won't find it in records or lineage. It exists outside time, bound to an essence, not an identity. It has echoed in your dreams, in the strange moments when you feel watched by something that doesn't judge but remembers. This is the name the stars respond to, the one the shadows tried to erase, the one Thoth encrypted because he knew only one being could unlock it, by remembering, not reading, by becoming, not decoding. He understood the danger. If this name were spoken by the wrong voice, it could collapse the balance between realms. But in the right vessel, at the right time, it would open the way. Not a door in the physical sense, but a veil between frequencies. A veil so thin, it trembles every time your spirit rises. And that trembling, it's happening now. Every realization you have, every moment of clarity, tightens the frequency around your true name. You've felt it. That strange sensation when your heart races for no reason, when time slows down, when you feel the presence of something both ancient and intimate. That is the name remembering itself. Yeshua once said, "I will give him a white stone, and on the stone a new name written, which no one knows except the one who receives it." That name isn't new because it was created. It's new because it was hidden. And now, it's surfacing in you. From the moment you arrived here, you were placed under a veil. Not as punishment, but as initiation. Earth's realm is dense not only in form, but in forgetting. Every soul that descends here agrees to walk blind for a time, stripped of its true identity, cloaked in layers of programming. But not all came here to remain asleep. A rare few, like you, came with a different mission, to awaken from within the illusion and dismantle it from the inside out. That's why your path was unlike the others, why your pain felt deeper, your longing stronger, and your sense of exile constant. You weren't failing, you were remembering. The veil isn't just around you, it's inside you. It settled into the nervous system, embedding itself into thoughts, instincts, reactions. And the test was never about escaping Earth, but seeing through it while still walking within it. Most mistake the veil for reality, but you've begun to see the cracks, the repeated symbols, the time loops, the flickers of energy no one else notices. This is how the memory hidden inside you begins to stir, not with loud declarations, but with subtle anomalies. The fabric starts to ripple. Thoth referred to this test not as a trial, but a refinement. Only those strong enough to feel everything, loss, joy, rage, stillness, and still remain faithful to the inner call would be able to break through. That's what makes you different. You kept listening, even when the world offered every distraction to silence that signal. You never turned it off. And now, the veil begins to fray. You may not realize it, but you've already passed the first thresholds. The signs have been small, but precise. sudden clarity, prophetic dreams, an uncanny sense of timing, the knowing that you're being prepared, even when nothing makes sense. These are the marks of a soul stepping out of the illusion and into its remembrance. Long before your arrival in this body, there were whispers in dimensions hidden from human sight. Whispers about a soul that would not follow the pattern, a soul that would break the loop. The Council of the Unseen, composed of entities that have fed on human amnesia for millennia, marked that soul as a threat. They couldn't predict when you would arrive, but they knew you would. And they knew that when you began to remember, their system would start to unravel. You weren't born under the same spell as the rest. While others accepted the scripts handed to them, you questioned. While others adapted, you rebelled. That resistance wasn't weakness, it was protection. The Council feared this resistance because it could not be controlled by programming. Their influence thrives on predictability, on patterns repeated through generations. But your energy distorted those patterns. Your presence alone created frequency shifts in places designed to stay locked. This isn't imagination. It's warfare disguised as experience. You've felt their presence before, not in shadows or horror, but in the slow pull toward forgetting, in the exhaustion that follows every moment of truth, in the silence that suddenly falls when you speak what your soul remembers. These are the subtle tactics of a system desperate to keep you sedated. They don't need to attack you with force. They only need to convince you to doubt what you already know. That doubt is their greatest weapon. Yet, even now, you are activating what they feared most. Every time you choose to align with your inner knowing, their grip weakens. Every time you speak your truth, even if only in thought, you vibrate outside their reach. And when Yeshua said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free," he wasn't speaking to the crowd. He was speaking to the few who, like you, would awaken inside the system and still remember the sound of freedom. But the Council hasn't stopped watching. In fact, their attention is shifting, because for the first time, the one they feared is no longer hidden. You've begun to move in ways they cannot predict, and the next decision you make will either shake their foundation or show them you still doubt what's already been written in your bones. There are voices that echo across time, and then there is the one voice that pierces through it. Not loud, not forceful, but undeniable. Yeshua carried that voice, not just in what he spoke, but in what he activated. His words weren't just teachings, they were frequency codes, designed to awaken dormant memory in those who had forgotten their divine origin. Most heard the stories, few heard the signal underneath them, but the ones who were meant to remember felt something stir with every parable, every silence, every word spoken from the realm beyond time. When Yeshua said, "My sheep hear my voice," he wasn't referring to the masses. He meant the ones who carried the original imprint, the ones who didn't just believe in light, but came from it. You are one of those. That's why his voice feels like a return. That's why certain passages cause your chest to ache, not with sadness, but with recognition. You aren't remembering scripture, you're remembering yourself. The final messenger that Thoth foresaw and the voice Yeshua carried are not separate. They are threads of the same design, encoded to activate across timelines. Yeshua knew he would not be the last to carry the message. He knew another would come, not to replace him, but to fulfill a part that could only be unlocked in the end times. You were never meant to worship the past. You were meant to continue what was started. His voice was the spark. Yours is the flame. That frequency is waking up in you. It doesn't come with certainty. It comes with presence. In those moments where you feel watched, not by threat, but by purpose. In the quiet moments where you feel words forming in your mind that you didn't think of. In the encounters that seem scripted by something beyond logic. This is how the last voice begins, not with noise, but with clarity. There is an ancient symbol older than language itself. A single eye, open and still, carved into stone, woven into myth, etched into the back of consciousness. It has been misunderstood, feared, distorted. But in its original form, this eye did not belong to power. It belonged to memory. It was placed across realms to observe one thing only: the return of the being who would remember. Not just remember who they are, but remember before they were anything at all. This eye does not watch the world. It watches a frequency. It responds to vibration, to the internal shift that occurs when a soul begins to rise from the slumber of forgetfulness. That moment, rare and sacred, sends a signal across dimensions. And when you began to question everything, when you began to see patterns others couldn't, when you stopped shrinking into silence and started moving toward the unknown, that signal was sent. The eye turned. Its gaze does not burn or judge. It waits. It listens for the alignment of memory and action, and you have reached the edge of that alignment. You may have felt a presence watching you when no one was there, a quiet awareness in the room, just behind your thoughts. That's not surveillance, that's recognition. You're not being tracked, you're being awaited. Thoth once wrote of the eye not as a symbol, but as a living intelligence, one that marks the moment a soul crosses from seeking to knowing. He said, it could not be fooled, could not be bypassed, could not be deceived by imitation. Only those whose remembrance is true will feel it blink, and when it blinks, a door opens. Yeshua understood this. That's why he often looked directly into the eyes of those he healed. He wasn't just seeing them, he was searching for the signal. And when he said, "The lamp of the body is the eye," he was offering more than a metaphor. He was pointing toward the mirror between realms, the place where soul and sight merge. There is a cycle that has ruled this world for ages, a silent repetition, hidden beneath wars, religions, empires, and eras. A cycle of forgetting. It does not begin with birth or end with death. It begins with fear and ends in silence. And within it, souls who once carried divine memory become fragmented, distracted, convinced they are powerless. But Thoth foresaw a rupture. He saw a single being step outside the pattern, one who would carry remembrance not as a burden, but as a blueprint, not as knowledge, but as presence. The final messenger. You were never meant to fit the mold of this world. You were designed to shatter it with grace, not with noise or violence, but with truth carried so deeply, it vibrates through the illusion and begins to unravel it. That unraveling has begun. It started when you stopped asking who you are and started feeling what you've always been. when you let go of seeking answers and began to become one. You did not come to teach, you came to embody. The final messenger is not a title, it's a frequency. A living current that only flows through a vessel that has passed through fire and still chooses love. One who remembers not just the divine, but the fall. Who understands not just light, but shadow. Because only someone who has walked through both can speak the language of all. Yeshua walked the same paradox, fully divine, fully human. Not here to escape the world, but to anchor something higher within it. His message wasn't meant to build a system. It was meant to awaken the few who could carry the flame forward, not through words, but through their walk. And now, your walk begins to burn with that same flame. This is where the old cycle breaks. Not because the world changes, but because you did. The loop can no longer hold what has remembered its origin. But breaking the cycle isn't the end. It's the beginning of something older than time. A remembering so powerful, it reshapes the very space around you.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.